No need to pinch yourself. It is indeed Groundhog Day. You are not dreaming. The Dolphins, in a big game on the road against a quality opponent in cold weather, uh, didn't show up early and didn't get it done.
You are Locked On Dolphins, your daily Miami Dolphins podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Miami. Welcome to another episode of Locked On Dolphins. It's your team every day here on the Locked On Network. I'm your host, Kyle Krabs, lifelong Miami Dolphins fan, host of Locked On Dolphins, co-host of Locked On NFL Scouting, author of Touchdown Miami, and the NFL draft lead for the 33rd team. Want to give a special shout out to our everydayers here on the Locked On Network. It is your team every day, even on Thanksgiving at 11:45 p.m. after a really crappy loss to the Green Bay Packers. Today's episode of Locked On Dolphins is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Locked On NFL for $20 off your first purchase. What time is it? It's game time. I don't know that the Dolphins knew what time game time started on this Thanksgiving. Spotting the Packers 14 points in the first quarter in a game that, just frankly, I really didn't get the impression this team was ready to play a game today. And, to some degree, you kind of expect that because it's a short week on a Thursday on the road with the travel and this, that, and the other thing. But the other team had to deal with all the same conditions too. And they came out and smacked you in the face. And it was everybody, right? It was everybody. I thought there was game management issues. I thought there was play calling issues. I thought there was fundamentals issues. Malik Washington looks like he's never fielded a punt before in his life on both of the first two punts that they forced from the Packers. He muffs the first one after you force the Packers to go 3 and out for -4 yards to open the game. And you muff the punt and you set him up inside the 10-yard line for a touchdown. And you spot him a touchdown after forcing a punt in the first 3 minutes of the game. You got Teron Armstead setting inside, giving a free runner off the edge for a sack on Tagovailoa. You got Calais Campbell trying to swim inside and getting washed so far off the point of attack, I think they might have knocked him into Canada from Green Bay. That's how far out of the play he got washed on the play on an explosive run that set the Packers up for another trip inside the low red zone. That was another one of their 3 first-half touchdowns that they had. The penalties, the Jonnu Smith stuff, the false start, the personal foul, the Julian Hill false start. It was the first 10 minutes was a comedy of errors for a team that was coming out to show we're ready to play in this environment. We're ready to play this football game. And every action, not every word, not every comment at a press conference, not every pregame interview, not every podcast appearance, every action that was spent in the first 10 minutes of game clock in this football game made a very declarative statement that this football team was not ready to play tonight. And it's annoying because in spite of all of the issues, and I know they're trailing by 3 scores in the second half, they find ways to move the football when they need to. Now, the Green Bay Packers are still finding ways to put Tua Tagovailoa on the ground. They sacked him 5 times. You've got injuries all over the place, but you go 8 for 70, you go 12 for 75 turnover on downs. You get on the 1-yard line and can't punch it in. You get 4 shots from inside the 5, and you go 7 for 67, and all of that's in the second half. And it looked a lot like what the offenses look like for much of the past month of play. But anything and everything that could go wrong, because it's a little chilly out and because there's some flurries and we can't track the ball, or we don't know our assignment, or we're slower off our spot, just a very frustrating night. For a team, I wore my black because that's nails for Miami. You could pack it in, pun intended. They've got some soft games on the schedule, but for a team that had momentum coming into this game, looking for a statement opportunity. For those of you who had same old Dolphins on the bingo card, congratulations, you've won. Not that you win anything other than the miserable experience of being right. You look at the team stats for this game, just a quick stat summary before we get into some of the game management stuff. Some special team stuff that I thought was pretty bad, in my opinion. You finish with 21 first downs. You go 4 of 14 on third down, but you do manage to go 3 of 5 on fourth down. You average 5.8 yards per play. That's off the backs of 336 net passing yards on 46 attempts. You run the ball 14 times for 39 yards, just an unserious effort in that element. And Kendall Lamb goes down. Patrick Paul comes in the back half of the game, so that's something to watch. You know, 2 for 4 in the red zone. You're penalized 10 times for 75 yards. You probably had another 4 or 5 penalties on top of that either weren't accepted or were offsetting. And then obviously the turnover on the muffed punt to open the game to spot the Packers a touchdown after you forced a 3-and-out and minus 4 yards. You laugh so you don't cry, right? And that Darius Rucker was on to something with the Dolphins. This was one that I think the difference in these two football games was really underscored, not just in like their preparation of being able to play today. Because it's not like Josh Jacobs had a great day running the ball. He ran 19 times for 43 yards. Chris Brooks goes 3 for 28 with an 18-yard run, had his longest run of the season. I'm sure that'll be on everybody's bingo card to complain about all weekend long and all week next week. But you have Jaden Reed go 1 for 23. You have Emmanuel Wilson ripped off the 15-yard run. They had some chunks. You struggled covering the back out of the backfield. You struggled covering the tight end. 7 targets for Tucker Kraft. He caught 6 for 78 yards. A lot of familiar pain points for a Dolphins team that is a very sobering reminder. Oh, and like Tyreek Hill had 1 catch for like 4 yards in the first half. We'll get a little bit more into all of it next here on Locked On Dolphins. Dolphins 5-7 on the season. That's next. Stick with us. If you're looking to get to some of your favorite local sporting events, whether that's a Heat game, a Panthers game, a Hurricanes game, I'll throw the Dolphins out there. I don't know who's in the mood to go to a Dolphins game right now in the post game, but you can get all of the tickets to your favorite local venues courtesy of Game Time. They take the guesswork out of buying tickets. They give you a panoramic view so that you know the sight lines before you commit to buying tickets. In just a few taps, you can get your tickets delivered directly to your phone, and you can toggle in all-in pricing, so there's no surprise fees when you put the tickets into your cart and go to check out. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms to apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL, LOCKEDONNFL, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. So some weird stuff, even down to just like the decision to kick the ball off and let the Packers return your kickoffs. Jason Sanders came into the season with it was like a 78% touchback percentage. They either they opted to kick it short or they failed to kick it into the end zone, but it was fielded at the 3. And Keyshawn Nixon, who is one of the best returners in football, ran it 43 yards out to start on the 46-yard line. Let's see. When did Miami score next? They kicked it out. Their second kickoff got returned to the 30-yard line as well. So there's no gained yardage in that regard either. Then in the second half, you start putting them out of the back of the end zone. I don't know what strategic advantage you think you would have on special teams against Green Bay with Keyshawn Nixon, who is an outstanding returner, but to presumably consciously make the decision because you started putting him out of the back of the end zone. I don't think we just forgot how to kick a cold football. Maybe we did. Put that on the bingo card for cold weather woes for the Dolphins, if that's the case. But to choose to play the kickoff game with Green Bay when you have the worst special teams unit in the league, it's a choice, and it's not one that I like. And it's a perfect embodiment of I thought how this game was managed. You get to the end of half sequence where, Green Bay gets an extra 3 points by going 34 yards and 4 plays in 22 seconds because you get cute and turn the ball over on downs instead of taking the opportunity to take a field goal kick from 4th and 5 from the 38-yard line. I mean, heck, you went for it on fourth down earlier in the game, made the kick, and then took the points off the board to go take a 4th down attempt, which you get, and then don't score a touchdown and end up kicking a field goal anyway. Things like that, like choosing to go for it down 21-3, getting the ball at half with an opportunity to kick it and make it a 2-score game, knowing you get the ball to start half, and then making a 17-point game into a 21-point game. I know, like, the big brain math will tell you a 3-score game is a 3-score game regardless, but a 3-score game with needing 2 touchdowns and a field goal versus a 3-score game needing it ended up being, you were down 24, so you need 3 touchdowns with 3 2-point conversions. Like, those are not the same thing. And every time you have an early negative game script with this coaching staff, the default response is flip it into high gear. Everything we do has to be to chase as many points as possible, as fast as possible. I'll give Tua Tagovailoa credit. I thought he managed the stressors of playing quarterback under these conditions and playing patient, and it pays dividends in big stats. We don't want big stats. We'd like more than 17 points. But I'd also like my punt returner to not put it on the ground. And I'd like him to not almost drop the second one too. And I'd like him to, the next time he fields a punt, I'd like him to not be super extra for 5 yards of return yards and end up getting flagged for a holding penalty on the return. That brings it back anyway. I'd like my defense to remember how to tackle, especially on the edge. Yeah, I mean, you had some injuries in this game. Cam Smith ends up going out. That's a whole other can of worms we could open if we wanted to, between Kader, Kohou getting banged up and Cam Smith and Storm Duck out here getting roasted like roast duck. Kendall Fuller's on out with concussion and concussion protocol. So you're walking wounded in the cornerback room to go with your walking wounded on the edge for what you have. Benito Jones gets shook up. Just a lot of Murphy's Law type of moments that all kind of sprung up for Miami trying to have a declarative statement game. It is a shame because I thought they kind of stabilized as the game went along, but those consolation prizes don't get you anywhere at this point in the year. If you hadn't dug yourself the hole when you came in with a competitive record and you lose this game, you're still going to be mad about spotting the Packers 14 points because it set the tone for the entire game, and it had a snowball effect that led to Miami thumbing their nose at point ads to try to get big point ads. And like, you should never just thumb your nose at points if you're in an opportunity to get points and climb back into a game. And that's the math that's done from a game management perspective frequently comes to these conclusions. And it has not worked out for them since Baltimore in 2022. Is that the last time we were down multiple scores and the aggressive mentality allowed the team to climb their way back and win a football game? I know they've had comeback wins of multiple scores, a lot of those being early in games, like they were down to Carolina, they were down to Detroit over the course of the last 3 years under the Mike McDaniel era. But You saw the difference in how this team that you played versus the team that you are. I think your ideologies were illustrated here. And there's not a steeper contrast in team building ideology than the Green Bay Packers versus the Miami Dolphins, in my opinion, as far as how they've utilized the draft, where they invest their dollars. This is a team that's frequently adding on the offensive line. This is a team that's frequently adding on the defensive line. Lucas Van Ness, one of their first-round picks in recent years, had a big showcase for them. Miami's invested in that edge group for sure. But they didn't re-sign Christian Wilkins, and I don't disagree with that relative to the cost that would have been associated with that and what they found with Calais Campbell. But this is a team that spends dollars and invests in the skill players and tries to rely on their scheme to work around restrictions with talent discrepancies in the trenches. And many times it works, but it doesn't work when you spot the other team 14 points to start the game. It does not work. And some of that goes into why the running game box score looks the way that it does and why the defensive performance looks the way that it does. We'll talk about that to bring this post-game episode to a close here on Locked On Dolphins. You can get ready to tackle NFL action this weekend with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets when you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL, only one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view the live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page as where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com. Dolphins, before kickoff today, were favored at home in Week 14 against the Jets by 6.5 points. So if that is of interest to you, we'll be keeping an eye to see if that line ultimately moves. Miami fails to cover the +3.5 that this spread for this game on Thanksgiving sat at all week long. Maybe would have been a little bit more interesting if they didn't spot the Packers 14 points and start horribly in every single possible phase. But they did, and that all counts before you get to the rest of the game and the clock hits triple zeros. Never waste a hunch. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Two ball carriers touched the ball today. Raheem Mostert and Devon Achane. And obviously, when you spot the other team 14 points, your game script and how you call plays is going to change. That's understandable. And when you're down 3 touchdowns, you understand how an offense is going to call plays. And I think that contributes to some degree on how Josh Jacobs finishes with 19 for 43. So I don't think the stats tell you the full numbers as it pertains to why this game went the way that it did. But the efficiency of your rush perspective, the Packers averaging 4.6 yards per rush, and the Dolphins averaging 2.8, in spite of most every opportunity they would have had to run the football after they got through the first quarter and the 5 plays that they ran in the first quarter of the football game. You should have had a lot of room. And now there's another interruption on the line with Kendall Lamb being out and Patrick Paul going in. We'll see what that storyline looks like and how that unfolds. But this is the kind of game that I hope whoever remains as a pillar of this football operation. The Dolphins had 21 first downs, and 20 of them came passing the football. You had 1 rushing first down in the game. That cannot fly. And especially you consider that low red zone sequence and how the Dolphins could not get that critical score in that would have cut this game to potentially, if they would have got a 2-point conversion, they could have made it a 1-score game and gone down 8 points. And that drive ends with a sack with 9 minutes and 39 seconds left from 4th and goal from the 1, in which you're out there trying to emulate run heavy, a running game threat, and then play action pass off of it, and nobody gets any separation. That's a bummer. And bummer is probably doing some overtime here, as far as that play sequence, which ended up being 12 plays, 75 yards, 6 minutes, and nothing left to show for it. From that moment, you were cooked trying to make this a football game. The Dolphins themselves, I would assume, are also cooked. I think they will beat the Jets at home next Sunday to move to 6-7. And then you get to go to Houston to play the Texans, who is a team that's competitive. My recommendation would be, if you're going to go win that game on the road, don't spot them 14 points. They get San Francisco at home, who's a banged-up team. Maybe win because they're home. I would still probably pick them to lose that game, assuming the 49ers have Brock Purdy and some of the other key pieces that they have. And I think the good news is, if you're looking for silver linings with this black cloud, I think they will break the cold weather streak between Cleveland and the New York Jets. I think they will win at least one of those 2 outdoor games there in January. And at least maybe we can put that piece of the puzzle to bed. But the defensive side of the football, and I'm not getting too far into the weeds on Tua Tagovailoa's individual play. Obviously, the box score is robust. 37 of 46 for 365 and 2 touchdowns, sacked 5 times. But I want to look at the film, the coach's film, and see. Obviously, there were some missed throws. There were some missed opportunities on the missed throws. And in the first half, they kind of played it close to the vest. I want to see throughout the full game script what kind of opportunities were there within the plays that were called, how much of the close to the vest nature was restrictive due to the conditions, how much of it was restrictive due to the game plan, how much of it was maybe Tua himself playing restrictive versus throws that were available to him. So that's an important one for me, where I don't need the box score to watch Jordan Poyer get wiped off the face of the planet. I don't need the coach's film to see that happen. I don't need the coach's film to see Calais try to go for a swim move up over the top, have a Packer put his face mask in his armpit and ride him down 2 gaps on an explosive run. I don't need the all-22 to see you had an opportunity to fight through contact on a rub on a short yardage situation and fail to fight through contact or duck underneath of it and give up a bunch of yards after catch. Like, those things are very apparent very quickly. And that's the kind of stuff that popped up on the game tape or on the TV broadcast that were just woefully apparent as far as a defensive effort. Miami manages just 3 splash plays. Benito Jones had a tackle for loss. Zach Sealer has a tackle for loss. Benito had an opportunity there on the what was it, that the 1-yard Jacobs touchdown plunge, where he's 2nd and goal with 55 seconds left in the first quarter. Jordan Love hands the ball off to Josh Jacobs for a 1-yard touchdown run. Benito Jones is tackling Jordan Love at the mesh point as it happens. Doesn't obviously interrupt the play, and it's a touchdown. But 30 points, this was the kind of game where I think you probably would have had to have held Green Bay under 21, and they played like that for a while. But the mistakes that you made yourself were just inexcusable, I think is probably the best way to describe it, because it's basic stuff. It's pre-snap procedures. It's fielding punts. It's taking good angles in space. And that's where we stand. So there's no need to pinch yourself, as we said at the top. It is yet another one of the opportunities for the Dolphins to do the thing and instead remind us of why the thing is a thing, because they cannot get this monkey off their back. And so we will press onward. We have 5 games left this season. As a reminder, the process here on the show is we are going to play them all and see what happens. And I don't mean that from like a postseason aspiration standpoint. Every week is performance review. Every week is finding problems. What are the biggest problems on the roster? Who are pieces that can be solutions? And who are pieces that are not solutions? And if you're not a solution, we'll see you later, because we need to find somebody who is a solution. And that's where we will pick up the pieces off of this game before we start to get ready for the next performance review next Sunday against the Jets. I'm Kyle Krabs. You can keep it locked in right here on Locked On Dolphins. It is your team every day. I appreciate you guys for checking out the show. Enjoy your weekend as best as you can. And we will be back again on Monday to break down what we found on the tape.